Dr. Rachel Winston, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, so I know your background originally was sort of more in education. How did you get interested in China?
I started traveling to schools in China and speaking at schools. And then I did an MBA program where I went to school partly in China. And then I went to Harvard and started studying China's economy. And that kind of, the ball started rolling. And I found it so fascinating that the China that I knew when I was a child was not the China that was coming up today. It was a very different China.
Well, so what do you mean? What was the difference that you saw?
When my father was with the United Nations, and he was the director of one of the branches of the United Nations, and so I grew up around international politics. And I mean, you didn't go to China, you didn't visit China, you didn't fly to China. It was a place that was off limits. You really didn't know what was going on there, but whatever it was, the people were really poor, and the cities were not developed, and it wasn't a place where we even considered going, and we traveled all over the world. So then when I was teaching college and I retired, then I said, I need to know more about this country that is growing so fast that we all should be aware of what's happening. And I needed to be more aware because I didn't know enough.
Well, yeah, I think what's interesting is you've already had like a very rich career. You started college when you were 13. You have multiple degrees in many fields. You've taught many fields. And then after all of this, you decided, let's look at China. And I imagine it sounds like at the beginning you sort of kind of had sort of the more rosy view of, what China is today, because obviously you went from a country that, you couldn't travel to, infrastructure, high-speed rails. So what was that change of thought like? So
when I went to Shanghai, I was like, wow, these buildings are beautiful. And then I went to Guiyang, and I went to Hangguoshu Falls, and I went to Xi'an. I went all over China, and everywhere I went, it was big, beautiful, developed, and art. And you go to Los Angeles, because I live near Los Angeles. I mean, it doesn't look like parts of China.
It's a hellscape.
I was like, I would rather live there in China than here. In fact, we have our favorite hotel. I didn't tell you this, but I live in a hotel 24/7. I don't have a house or an apartment, and I haven't had one for a very long time. So I live in a hotel. So we have our favorite hotels in China in every city. And I don't think I can go back and live in any of them anymore. But and I don't think I'd risk my life. But I found China remarkably different than the China that I had expected. Except on the outside, it looks so beautiful, but on the inside, it's very dangerous. So I was really fascinated by how a country could turn around like that.
When did you start realizing that it was dangerous?
I think it's when I started working with businesses in China. Some of the people that I worked with talked about cooperation. Their favorite word is, we're going to cooperate.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it sounded great. Win-win. They would say win-win. It's going to be great for both of us. But actually, it never happened that way. Some of the people took my picture, my bio, everything, put it on their website and said that I worked with them, but I never worked with them. And after a number of experiences like that, that didn't stop me. One of the people that I met with at a hotel in Shanghai was a CCP military officer. It was a woman. She was one of the scariest people I've ever seen in my life. I was talking to her daughter, but but she stood right over top of us in her military outfit. And I was like, am I going to get out of this hotel alive? I mean, I was really afraid for my life, and I needed to know more. But when I mean, really, it was Xinjiang that did it for me. It was, how do we have concentration camps today? I don't understand that. I went to Dachau in 1972. It said never again. And how is never again mean that we have not just one, but we have hundreds of concentration camps? And it was really the concentration camps that got me trying to understand more about China's policies and why they would do this.
Well, why did you want to focus on the Belt and Road? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't really know much about.
So my thesis at Harvard and the University of Chicago were both surrounded about the South China Sea, because what was happening in the South China Sea was unconscionable. And I didn't understand why the United States didn't protect Scarborough Shoal. Like, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I read the Mutual Defense Treaty, and I didn't understand that.
Just to give some quick background for the audience, because that's an important event. Scarborough Shoal was claimed by the Philippines and China. Chinese essentially sent their Coast Guard in to occupy the shoal. Philippines and China looked like they were really going to go to blows over that. The U.S. stepped in and said, just both sides leave. The Philippine side left, the Chinese side stayed and occupies it till this day. And the Philippines has a mutual defense treaty with the United States, and the fact that the U.S. just kind of let this happen, it had shockwaves in Southeast Asia for a long time. So continue, please. So,
I mean, once I started reading about Scarborough Shoal, then I realized that China had taken other islands long before that. And they were threatening others. And I think I was attracted by, words like, wolf warrior, salami slicing, these kinds of things that were like, wow, what are they doing? So my first book was Raging Waters in the South China Sea. The problem was, when I got there, I was like, what is happening in India? Like, is China going to India or Bhutan or like Nepal? Like, why are they doing this, taking all these other countries? So then I got into China's power grab and expanding claims. That was my second book. So I was really just in Asia, but Africa kept on, pulling me. Like, what is China doing in Africa? And so I wrote Belt and Road under Beijing's thumb, but the book was just so long. It was so long. It was like 550 pages, and I almost 600 pages. And I just split the book in two. I was like, something? We can't, people are not going to read like that long of a book. So I split into, and I made it into Diplomacy with Chinese Characteristics and Belt and Road under Beijing's thumb. So really those two were written at the same time. They were one book until I cleaved them apart. Like
Kill Bill Part 1 and 2.
Yeah. Or, Wolf Warrior Wolf Warrior 1 and 2, right?
Has China made that movie?
There's multiple Wolf
But
Warriors.
Specifically called Wolf. Oh, yeah, it is called Wolf Warrior. That's where it came from.
The whole thing came from Wolf Warrior. You forgot.
Yeah, I forgot. It's just so in the lexicon now.
You should watch it. I watched that movie just because I was curious. And I found it really quite fascinating how countries use propaganda through film to get their people, excited about nationalism and everything. So I found the movie really interesting. They have subtitles. It's obviously in Chinese, in Mandarin, but
they've been doing that a long time. I know they like a big thing is like these anti-Japanese movies, because the state has so many censorship requirements for their film industry. They basically are stuck making films about World War II and why the Japanese are evil. And like some of the things are insane, like a Chinese soldier throwing a grenade into the air to blow up a Japanese jet or plane.
Yeah, I mean, they've been, I remember watching some from like the 1930s,
going way back.
Going way back, like this type of, well, that would have been still under the nationalists, but kind of starting in the 40s and 50s, there was a lot of these like red movies, right?
Yeah.
Where you have the, like, at the time it was more glorifying the party, but now nobody really wants to watch them as much, so they have to kind of turn into nationalism. So they're doing the kind of the 1980s America type of movie, like Rambo, Top Gun.
I saw one where a Chinese soldier literally ripped a Japanese soldier in half with his bare hands.
I believe that was historically accurate.
Yes, that's World War II. It was a bloody hard war.
But the only part that's a lie would have been if it was a communist soldier who did it.
Yeah, because the communists actually weren't really fighting the Japanese forces.
Anyway, where are we?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Africa.
Africa.
So, wolf warrior diplomacy, Africa. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, because if you're talking about the Belt and Road, Africa inevitably comes up.
Yeah. I mean, they were surprisingly, Mao went into Africa really early in his administration. They've been in Africa for quite a while. They built the Tazara line in the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. Yeah. So it's been half a century for sure that they've been there. So we kind of think that a lot of these contracts in the Belt and Road Initiative, and now China has 140 countries signed on with the Belt and Road Initiative, 140 of them. This isn't one, this isn't like a couple of countries. There are 140. And so in Africa, China needs resources. They need minerals. They need energy. They don't have these natural resources. And so the best thing to do was to go into countries that could provide them with the minerals that they needed in order to produce or manufacture products. And they're doing it more so now than before.
And it's not just about the minerals. It's, if ever you need proof that China is trying to create an alternative world order to compete against the United States, Belt and Road, 140 countries. They're creating this alternate sphere of influence that also ties into Chinese military expansion. We'll get into some of the digital Belt and Road stuff as well, but also about, surrounding India, for instance, and eliminating competition to the Chinese Communist Party world order.
Certainly the string of pearls, the Indo-Pacific is important. But I think another thing that we don't think about quite often is how China is inserting people into United Nations organizations. They have a member on the Human Rights Committee. The Human Rights Committee, can you believe it? And how they're doing that is if they have a country that can't pay their debt, they owe China. And so it's very easy. You are going to vote with us, tell the United Nations that we should have China or a proxy serve on these committees so that we can have China-friendly policies. And I think we're going to see more of the United Nations turn into a China-friendly organization.
Yeah. I mean, I would say
saw that with the WHO.
I would say you definitely had that before Belt and Road, but it's definitely increased more and more, not just in the UN, but also, ASEAN, the EU, all of these international bodies. And what's interesting, too, is you don't even have to be a country that's in debt to China. As long as you've signed a Belt and Road agreement with them, there's a certain expectation that you're going to align with China's politics, right? Otherwise, they'll be unhappy with you. You're not cooperating.
I think, 140 countries, like that's more than 2/3 of the countries, right? There's about 200, depending on what you call a country, right? And so essentially China now has influence over more than 2/3 of the world's votes in the world's only important governing body. That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. I think everybody should be terrified. And yet I don't think the media or people really are aware that there's this tidal wave, and you can see the tidal wave, and it's right over top of us.
But the tidal wave is promising win-win mutual cooperation.
Yeah.